My husband remarried my sister after finding out that I didn't receive any of the inheritance, but she did. On the night of my father's funeral, I encountered a painful revelation I never expected. After the ceremony, as the silence filled the room, Jason, my husband, approached me with a question that made my blood run cold. "So, when was it your turn to inherit?" he asked, with a tone that tried to hide his impatience. He knew that my father had left a considerable sum, $3 million, and Jason had been waiting for this moment to find out the details. I tried to stay calm, still processing the pain of having lost my father. "No, nothing happened to me," I lied, trying to hide the truth and protect what was left of my dignity. Jason's response was immediate, and his true character was revealed to me. "I knew that your parents never saw much in you. What a relief to know that I wasn't wrong." "This simplifies things," Jane said with a cruel smile that couldn't hide her contempt. "What do you mean?" I asked, although a part of me already knew the answer. "I want a divorce now. There is no point in staying together, and there is nothing to gain from your side. In fact, I already have someone else in mind, someone who can really contribute something to my life." He confessed, without hesitation, while taking out the divorce papers from his briefcase. At that moment, the pain and the betrayal I felt were indescribable. But within that whirlwind of emotions, a sense of relief began to take shape. Relief at having seen Jason's true face, for the opportunity to free myself from a relationship built on material expectations and not love. Genuine is okay. "Jason, if that's what you want, I won't be the one to stop you," I said with a firm voice. Although inside, I felt broken as I signed the divorce papers. A part of me cried for the lost love, but another part, perhaps wiser and stronger, knew that this was it, the first step towards my true liberation. It was the end of a painful chapter, but also the beginning of something new, something that I hoped would be full of true happiness and self-discovery. From a very young age, my life at home was a constant battle for a little attention and love, something that always seemed reserved exclusively for Kim, my younger sister. My mother always had clear preferences, making it evident that Kim was the favorite, leaving me in the background, invisible and forgotten. "You are so smart, Kim," my mother used to say with pride as she looked at her school grades, her eyes shining with joy. "You must have gotten that from my side of the family," he added, giving me a quick look full of silent comparison. I sat on the other side of the table, trying to shrink myself, wishing to disappear with my own good grades, but never enough to earn more than a simple nod. Family dinners became parades of Kim's achievements, from her small victories at school to her fashion choices, always in the light of our mother's approval. "Jane, why can't you be more like your sister?" she lamented, her loaded words out of disappointment. I tried several times, participating in different activities and trying to improve my grades, but I was always left in Kim's shadow. "It's just a school contest. It's not a big deal," my mother said when I won a prize, her indifference cutting deeper than any criticism. "You know what, Mom? I won first place in the art contest," I announced one afternoon, waiting for at least a flash of interest. "Oh, really? Well, that's good. Kim, you already showed me your latest photos on Instagram. You have so many followers now," she responded quickly, changing the subject, relegating me once again to oblivion. Loneliness became my constant companion, my refuge and my prison. My room was my sanctuary, full of drawings and paintings, my emotions captured on paper, a silent cry to be seen, to be recognized as something more than Kim's sister. The continuous comparisons and blatant favoritism left deep scars, a sense of inadequacy that accompanied me into adulthood. Just try to be better, Jane, I told myself, although deep down, I knew that for my mother and Kim, my childhood and adolescence, marked by rejection and the fight for recognition that never came, taught me hard lessons about self-love and the search for acceptance, not of others, but of myself. When I finished school, I was full of dreams and desires to continue studying. However, at home, things were different. I'm sorry, Jane, but we can't afford to send you to university. The costs are too high, my mother told me one day without even looking me in the eyes. She didn't understand how it could be possible until just a few weeks later, when they announced that Kim would go to one of the best private universities in the city. Kim has a bright future ahead of her, my mother stated with pride, and we must do everything possible to support her. And what about me? I don't deserve the opportunity to have a future? I also asked, trying to hide the pain and frustration in my voice. Jane, you know how things are, and you can always work and later think about studying something, my mother responded, as if the solution were as simple as if my dreams and efforts meant nothing. So I started working, first in small jobs and then getting something more stable. What I earned was not much, but it was enough to feel a little independence. However, that feeling did not last long. Now that you work, you should contribute at home and do not forget. Kim. Her education is expensive and everyone in this family must do their part. My mother told me one day, extending her hand, waiting for my check, my part here. Is my future not part of this family? I asked, handing over almost everything I had earned that month. The excuses were always the same. It's for the good of the Kim family. He will thank you one day. But that day never came. My efforts and sacrifices were seen as expected duties, not as acts of generosity. Kim's education was my responsibility, according to my family, while my own education was seen as an unnecessary luxury. To work and fulfill my dreams faded while I financed Kim's. It became my daily life. The inequality in treatment between the two of us was evident, and my desire to grow, to learn, and to be more than a simple worker was crushed under the weight of a family duty that seemed to apply in only one direction. After years of enduring the toxic environment of my house, where every day was a test of resistance in the face of favoritism towards Kim and indifference towards me, it was finally time to make one of the most difficult and liberating decisions of my life, to leave my home. Jane, are you sure of this? You don't have to do it, my father tried to dissuade one afternoon, his voice heavy with worry. He was the only one who somehow tried to balance the scale at home, although his efforts were systematically undermined by my mother. Dad, I can't anymore. This place, this house, I don't feel part of it. There's no room for me here, I told him, packing up the little I had decided to take. My words were firm, but inside, my heart was tearing. I remember that my mother barely looked up from her magazine when I announced my decision. If you think you are going to find something better outside, go and look for it. But don't run back when things get difficult, he said without an ounce of emotion. Kim just smiled, as if my departure was part of her wishes. We will finally have more space at home, she murmured, without even pretending to offer any support. The night before my departure, my father called me to his study. Jane, here is something to help you get started, he whispered, handing me an envelope with some money. Don't tell your mother, he added with a look that mixed sadness and complicity. But my mother discovered it, as always. So, you are financing her escape. It is not enough that I no longer contribute at home, he snapped, making sure that the money returned to his hands, leaving me once again with the minimum to survive. The next morning, I left the house with an old suitcase and a heart full of hope and fear. I had no concrete plan, only the burning desire to find my place in the world, far from the oppression and shadow of a family that never valued me for who I was. When I closed the door, I looked back. I knew that the road would be difficult, that there would be days of struggle and nights of doubt. But for the first time in a long time, I felt that I had control of my life, that I was taking the reins of my destiny. And although the future was uncertain, the possibility of building something of my own, something far from the toxicity I had known, filled me with a determination I had never felt before. The loss of my father was a devastating blow. Despite our differences and the distance my family's toxicity created, his death left a void in me. But in the midst of pain and confusion, I received a call that would change my life forever. "You are Jane Wright. I am your father's lawyer. I need to talk to you about his will," said a voice on the other end of the line. Initially, I thought it was a mistake. My father had a will. And why would he want to leave me anything, considering how my mother and Kim always made me feel like the black sheep in the family? When I arrived at the lawyer's office, I was nervous. "Your father left very clear instructions," the lawyer began, opening a folder that contained documents that I never imagined would exist. "You, Jane, you are the only beneficiary of a fund that he has been secretly accumulating. It is $3 million. My eyes filled with tears, not because of the money, but because of the gesture. Despite the distance, the fights, and the cold atmosphere at home, my father had thought about me. He had wanted to protect me and make sure I had the opportunity for a different life, a life away from the oppression and toxicity of my family. How is this possible? My mother, Kim? They don't know any of this?" I stuttered. "It is true," the lawyer confirmed. "It was your father's decision. He wanted this to be just for you, a hidden legacy to ensure your future and your independence. He cared a lot about you, despite what you might think." I left the lawyer's office with a mixture of emotions. On the one hand, there was deep sadness for the loss of my father, the only one who, in his own way, had tried to take care of me. On the other, I felt a kind of liberation, the possibility of starting over, building my own life away from the shadows of my past. That night, as I looked at the documents over and over again, I couldn't help but wonder what my father would have wanted to tell me with this final act of love. "Take care of yourself," seemed to whisper between the lines, a message not only of farewell, but also of hope. I decided then that I would use that money not only to secure my future, but also to honor my father's memory by investing in those things that I always dreamed of, but that were denied to me. The freedom that inheritance gave me was much more than financial. It was the ability to rewrite my story, to finally be the protagonist of my own life. After learning about the inheritance that my father had left me, I knew that the moment to confront my mother and Kim was inevitable. Armed with the truth and an iron determination, I decided to visit them, to reveal the legacy that had been entrusted to me. Arriving at the house where I grew up, the atmosphere was as cold and distant as I always remembered. My mother and Kim were sitting in the living room, and when they saw me, their faces changed from surprise to disdain. "What are you doing here, Jane?" asked my mother, with a tone that was trying to be authoritative. "I came to talk about Dad's will," I said, trying to stay calm. "Yes, about the inheritance he left me." Kim gave a mocking laugh. "Inheritance, please, Jane. We all know that Dad wouldn't leave you anything." Then, when I took out the documents that the lawyer had given me to see them, my mother's face paled, and Kim stopped laughing. This is not possible," stammered my mother, clearly bewildered. "It is very possible, and it's the truth. Dad left me $3 million, and he did it secretly to make sure you guys couldn't interfere," I explained, feeling a mixture of sadness and satisfaction when I saw their shock. My mother, recovering from the initial surprise, tried one last effort. "That doesn't matter. We have a will that says that everything is for us," she said, taking out a clearly forged document. "Don't bother. I already talked to the lawyer, and everything is clarified. That false will has no value," I answered with a firmness that surprised even Kim, who until then had been remarkably silent. The silence that followed was eloquent. The revelation of my father's true will had unmasked my mother's intentions and Kim's once and for all. There was no anger in my heart, only the confirmation that the decision to walk away was correct. "I hope they can live with the truth," I said, before turning around and leaving the house, leaving them behind in their desperation and shock. That moment, I not only closed the door of that house, but also the chapter of my life that had been marked by toxicity and rejection. With each step I walked away, I felt the weight of years of resentment begin to fade. I was ready to start again, away from the shadows of the past, armed with the truth and a new opportunity to forge my own path. After revealing the truth about the inheritance to my mother and Kim, I faced another turning point: the divorce from Jason. The situation with Jason had reached a point of no return. His obsession with wealth and his involvement with Kim only confirmed that the decision to divorce was the right one. "I really need to know, Jane. There is no inheritance for you. It is important for our future," he insisted, clearly anxious and hopeful for a different answer. "Jason, I told you there is nothing for me. It was all a misunderstanding," I lied, knowing the truth about the inheritance would only make things more difficult. It was then when his true self came to light. "So, this is not... It makes sense. We can't stay together if there's no benefit to it. In fact, I've been thinking about Kim. She sure knows how to take advantage of opportunities." That confession was the straw that broke the camel's back. "Well, Jason, if that's the real you, then this is the end for us," I said with a mixture of pain and relief, signing the divorce papers without hesitation. Soon after, Jason and Kim got married, believing that together they could enjoy the inheritance they thought I had received. But reality hit them hard and fast. Without my supposed inheritance and without a real plan for his future, Jason found himself trapped in a disastrous financial situation. "Jane, I need to talk to you. I was wrong. Kim and I didn't know there was no inheritance. I'm broke, and our relationship is in ruins," Jason admitted one day, looking for my sympathy or perhaps a way out. "It seems that you finally understand the consequences of your actions, Jason, but it is too late. You have to face the consequences of your decisions, just like Kim. This is karma for all the damage they caused," I responded firmly, closing that chapter of my life to always see. Since Jason was facing the same difficulties he tried to impose on me, he taught me a lesson about justice and karma. Sometimes life has a unique way of balancing things by giving everyone back what they deserve based on their actions and decisions. This episode confirmed to me that walking away from Jason and my toxic family was the best decision I could have made, allowing me to finally find my peace and begin to build a future on my own terms. With my father's inheritance finally in my hands, I found myself faced with the incredible opportunity to start from scratch, far from the toxicity that had dominated my life until that moment. The freedom I felt was overwhelming, almost as tangible as the fresh air I breathed every morning. When I woke up, knowing that the chains of my family and my dissolved marriage were no longer holding me back, I decided that the first step in my new life would be to build my own house. I want something modest but cozy, a place that I can call home, I told the architect. We designed each space together, thinking about the tranquility and the light that I wanted to fill each corner. This will be a new beginning, Jane assured me, and her words resonate in my heart. As my house began to take shape, so did my new life. I found a job at a small local business. We are looking for someone with your dedication and energy. We believe you can contribute a lot, my new boss told me during my interview. Working in a positive environment and being valued for my efforts was a highly new experience for me. With each passing day, I felt like the shadows of the past dissipated a little more, leaving room for the light of new possibilities. My colleagues became friends, and little by little, I began to build a community around me, something that I never thought possible. Jane, your house is turning out beautiful, commented a coworker one day when I invited her to see the progress. I can feel the peace that you have put in every detail, thank you, I responded, looking with pride at how far I had come. Each brick, each color represents a part of the freedom that I now enjoy. It is my refuge, my space of peace. Freedom also brought me the opportunity to explore new hobbies. I enrolled in painting classes, a passion that I had put aside for years. Your work is very good, Jane. There is a lot of emotion in your paintings, the instructor encouraged me. Each brushstroke was an expression of my journey from sadness to hope, from darkness to light. This new stage of my life was full of reconstruction, not only of a physical home, but also of my inner being. For the first time, I felt complete, master of my destiny. I had found my place in the world, far from the expectations and limitations that others tried to impose on me. I am building something beautiful here, I thought, looking at the sunset from the window of my new house. Freedom and the reconstruction of my life were my most precious achievements, fruits of my resilience and my desire to find happiness despite everything. In this new stage of my life, I cannot deny that there are moments when loneliness feels overwhelming, nights when the silence of my new home seems too intense, and I find myself longing for a conversation, a shared laugh, even a simple gesture of companionship. Yet, in those moments of solitary reflection, I find a deep sense of peace and gratitude. One afternoon, while I was watching the sunset from my garden, the neighbor Mr. Garcia approached with a smile. Jane, I have seen you alone lately. Would you like to join us for dinner tonight? My wife has prepared too much. As always, he offered me kindly. At first, I was hesitant, getting used to my voluntary isolation, but something in their warm and welcoming tone made me accept. I would love to. Thank you, I replied. And that dinner became one of many that I shared with them. Through simple gestures of kindness and community, I began to feel less isolated, more connected to the world that surrounded me. In moments of loneliness, I also take refuge in the memories of my father. I remember his smile, his silent support. Even in the distance, he wanted the best for me. I think allowing myself to feel not only the smell of his loss, but also the unconditional love he left me is a legacy, a mixture of emotions, but predominantly it is consuelo what I find in those memories. I have realized that loneliness does not have to be my enemy. It has become a companion for reflection, a space to connect with myself and value the freedom that I now possess. The freedom to live my life my way, without the chains of judgment or the control of those I once considered my family. One night, while painting in my studio, surrounded by my own creations, I realized just how far I had come. It's peace, I told myself, immersed in my art, in my world. This is living. Although loneliness appears from time to time, now I know how to navigate it. Not like a storm that should be feared, but like a tide that comes and goes, offering me moments of introspection and personal growth. In these moments, I feel truly free, truly far from judgments and expectations. And in that freedom, I have found an unbreakable peace, a sanctuary within myself that accompanies me in every step of this journey that I have chosen. In this new stage of my life, each day is presented as a blank sheet full of new possibilities and opportunities to grow and flourish, far from the shadows of the past. I have built a life for myself that, although challenging, is full of personal and professional satisfaction. I live in my own home, a place that I have decorated with my paintings and memories that mean the world to me, each one telling a story of overcoming and hope. One morning, while I was making coffee, my neighbor Anna passed by my garden. "Jane, would you like to join our reading group? We meet every week to share and discuss our favorite books," she said with a smile. "It would be a wonderful way to meet new people and share your interests." Anna's invitation was a reminder of how much my life had changed. "I would love to." "Thank you for thinking of me," I responded, excited by the idea of making new friendships and exploring worlds through reading. This simple gesture of friendship was a luxury I never thought possible, a sign of renewal in my life. At work, I have earned the respect and admiration of my colleagues. "Jane, your dedication and creativity have brought a new energy to the team," my boss told me one day. "We are grateful to have you with us." These words of appreciation and recognition were something I rarely experienced in my previous life, and every day I feel more valued and fulfilled professionally. But beyond the external renewal, the most significant thing has been the internal change. I have learned to cultivate inner peace, to enjoy my own company, and to value the small joys in life. The lonely nights of reflection have become moments of gratitude and self-knowledge. "Look how far you have come, Jane," I say to myself often, especially when I visit my father's grave to tell him about my life, about the challenges overcome and the victories achieved. "You wanted for me a life of peace, hope, and renewal. This new life is my tribute to you, a demonstration that your love and sacrifices were not in vain." Although he is no longer physically with me, his spirit guides me and inspires me to move forward, to face each day with courage and optimism. Today, surrounded by new possibilities and fueled by hope, I am more convinced than ever that renewal is possible, even from the depths of despair. The life I have built is a testament to the power of resilience and the ability to transform pain into strength, sadness into joy, and loneliness into a deep sense of connection and purpose. This is my life, a life chosen and cultivated by me, a life that honors my father's legacy of love and hope. If you liked this story, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel. This other video that appears on the screen will probably move you.